Welcome to the Dateable AF podcast, because women dating women is wild, wonderful, and occasionally a disaster. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Kyle, a therapist in private practice.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Howell, researcher extraordinaire.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of the Dateable AF podcast. This week, we are talking about I'm not clingy, you're just distant, dating with different attachment styles. Have you ever been called too much by someone who barely texts you back?
I haven't personally, if you're asking me that question.
I've been the one who barely texts back. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll get further into that. We're already exposing our attachment styles right here.
I was fully prepared for that.
You knew it was going to happen. We're going to have to out ourselves.
That's right. Well, what are the attachment styles? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this is a concept that was formulated, I believe it was in the 50s. And there were a few different researchers. Bowlby was one of them. Ainsworth was another one. But I wanted to talk today about a study by this woman named Mary Ainsworth, who did this experiment where she brought moms and babies into a lab situation. The moms would put the babies on the ground, and then the researchers would just observe what the babies did. And some of the babies would crawl away and explore their environment and then come back and check in with the mom, crawl away, come back and check in with the mom. And they deemed that those babies were securely attached because they had this attachment figure that they knew they could always come back to, and they weren't afraid to go explore their environment. There was another set of babies that clung to their moms and never left. They couldn't leave. They were too scared, and they deemed that these babies were called insecurely attached. And then there was a third set of babies who would crawl away from the mom, explore the environment, and just peace out, never come back to the mom. So they called those babies avoidantly attached. And then later, they sort of added a combined version called anxious-avoidant. So that's somebody who's sometimes clingy and sometimes avoidantly attached. So anyway, we can dive into all of that, but those are the basic attachment styles that we're going to be talking about today.
That last one sounds a little bit like attachment bipolar.
You just go from one extreme to the other. Yes, that is not an inaccurate description.
Well, this made me think about the stories my mother used to tell about me as a baby.
What did she say?
And so I'll go ahead and put it out there. I think we probably pretty quickly figure out which category I fall into. But my mother wanted to rock me and sing to me. I can't say why I didn't want her to do that. Probably because she's not very good at singing. But I was not interested in sitting still. And so I wanted to wander off. I didn't like to be held like that. It was holding me down. I would venture to guess that if we asked my mother today, I might have been one of those babies that wandered off and never came back.
Could be.
I'm just guessing.
Well, and it's since we're talking about self-disclosure here, I would say that I am probably the same way. I was the fifth of 5 children of my mother's, and I don't think she had a lot of time or patience left to have another baby. And so I think I learned pretty quickly to just peace out and explore the world on my own. So I also want to add that whenever I take like a personality quiz or attachment style test, that I somehow feel like whatever I am is kind of superior.
God, I love that.
And I'm like, oh, thank God I'm not this other thing.
Oh, Lord.
So we can just talk about avoidant attachment style with superiority today. Just kidding, everyone. Just kidding.
Well, the other I'll disclose, and I'm sure, go ahead, everybody, write in all the Moniques and Veronicas out there that in my dating over the past 5 years. I feel sure that a bunch of them will weigh in and go, oh, we know which attachment style you are.
She's avoidant, all right.
She's avoidant.
Huh? At least we're not clingy.
That's true. I wouldn't want to be that.
Oh, I hope people know we're not taking ourselves that seriously right now. Yeah. Okay. So I know you've done some research about this topic. I would love to dive in and hear kind of what you found about, like, why do these attachment styles matter in dating? How can mismatched styles in your relationship create drama, maybe unnecessary drama? And I also would like to say we don't want to focus on diagnosing someone. This isn't about pathologizing someone, but I do think it's helpful to understand these patterns so that we can be more intentional in our relationships.
I did do some research. One is because obviously don't know nearly as much about this topic as you do. And I was very curious because I was somewhat aware and familiar with the different issues. But the thing that did come up for me is in the research was that whichever of these you have, and I'm sure that people are all, some people are not totally anxious or totally secure, and some people probably float in and out of those, or it's sort of like a continuum. But that if you do lean heavily on in one way or another that is not serving you well, I was looking at this. It was out of a European journal about personalities, and it was a study done. It was actually a longitudinal study, and it was a big sample size, like 4,000 participants, and so pretty significant. And longitudinal, just for our audience, means it's likely to be 3 years or more. So that makes for a very significant study. And they were looking at the fact that people who do have an anxious or avoidant attachment style, I mean, you can change. You can, I think that what it said was that you can alter that to some degree. So I'm sure that there is some aspect of that will always be in play, but that all is not lost if you're out there in the dating world, in that you have a desire to fade your shade in one of those areas, that you can do it with effort and focus. And so they did, the study did prove that folks who were focused on making some of those shifts and changes were able to tamp down the extreme nature of their attachment style.
Yes. And avoidant attachment is basically, it's fear-based, because the idea is, I don't want to need you too much. I don't want you to need me too much. And then we're all good. That is rooted in a fear of trusting someone, that if I trust someone, I'm going to get let down. So it's better to just be independent and rely on myself. With therapy, I can vouch as a client of therapy and as a therapist that you can absolutely overcome that mistrust. And I guess likewise, anxious attachment is also a lack of trust, because you're afraid that person's going to leave if you don't cling on to them. So if you work through your own stuff, your own insecurities, I think that you can move more towards secure attachment from either of those extremes.
The other study that I read that I thought was really interesting, so specifically related to us talking about how people deal with this in dating, was a study I saw with a group of speed daters. And they were looking at which attachment styles they were most likely to notice within, I think that each dater saw 13 people for 3 minutes each. And so, for those of you that aren't familiar with speed dating, but you have that much time to talk to the person, just trying to get to know them, and then you move on to the next person. But you're in person, face to face with them. And that what they discovered was that in the speed dating, they were much quicker to pick up the people who had an anxious attachment style than they were folks that had a avoidant attachment style.
When you say pick up, you mean identify, not
I'm sorry,
as date.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
When they were quickly able to identify someone with an anxious nature versus an avoidant attachment style. I just thought that was really interesting because I wasn't able to dig deep enough into the study or open it up to the degree that I could see the summation, like why. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out more about that. What was it about people who were anxiously attached? Like, what did they give off so that people were able to recognize that right away.
What I did read was there was a lot about the anxious attachment style, the person that has that or shows that. You can see it when you're with them, like it shows up. So they were able to pick up, I guess, maybe body language, signs of that. They got a sense of it. And I thought, wow, that really plays into this issue again with people trying to app date, is that you don't have any of those, you're not able to use so many of your natural screeners and senses in order to spot these red flags and things that you can, even if you're just with somebody for 3 minutes. So I just thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, you can learn so much more about a person from meeting them in person, because someone who's anxiously attached could write a beautiful profile and you wouldn't be able to tell that.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my research for this podcast.
I love it. Well, let's talk about how people end up with partners who have the opposite attachment styles as they have. Why do you think that happens?
Wow, that's a big question. I don't know if there's any one major reason. I do know that, I mean, you know, there's a saying, opposites attract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it is interesting to me that a lot of times the anxious people will get into it with the folks with avoidant attachment styles, and that they get in that push-pull. I don't know what it is. You can shoot more light into this, what it is that draws them to it. Because I will say this, I probably lean more on the avoidance side. I actually think I'm a pretty secure attachment girl overall. But if I lean in one direction, it's going to be avoidant. And I am not at all drawn to people with, oh God, I'm going to say that right there. And
Don't make me challenge you on the show.
I'm going to take that back, because
Rachel was about to say something that was untrue.
Untrue.
And she could see that I was going to call her out on
it. I'm sucking it back in.
Rewind. Well, I think that this happens all the time, and it's a really interesting phenomenon to watch. If you imagine two kids on a playground and one person runs away, what does the other person do? They chase them. Mm-hmm. And as adults, we get in this same dynamic. And a way to talk about it is that the avoiding personality has a fear of engulfment. They're afraid of kind of being taken over by the other person. And so they take a slight step back because they're afraid of getting engulfed. Well, that triggers the anxiously attached person to feel like they're about to be abandoned. So they take a step closer, which triggers the avoidant person to take a step farther back, which triggers the anxious person to take a step closer. And so they keep perpetuating this cycle. And I talk about this in therapy a lot, that the easy answer, it's simple, but it's not easy to accomplish, is that both people just stop. The one person stops chasing and the other person stops running. And they both just stand still where they are, and then they're able to find their level and get a little bit more security with each other.
And saying that, it sounds to me like you're saying that it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the recipe for a bad relationship. It's more about understanding where you are in it.
Right. And I agree. I didn't read the study that you were just referencing, but I do believe that you are not necessarily avoidantly attached in all of your relationships. It's sort of a leaning that you have. And you said people can change. And I definitely think that's true, that if you are with a partner who's trustworthy and who offers you security in a relationship, it's much easier to be securely attached. And if you're with someone who's aloof or who flirts with other people or who doesn't communicate well with you, then it's easy to trigger an anxious attachment.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's very tricky too, because I think there are certain things also that, to your point, that spark that feeling. So I might not generally feel that way with a person, but there are moments that I could feel that way with them.
Yeah.
So I've had an experience where I've lived my life, a good number of years of my life, with someone who on the daily, there are many things that did not feel that way at all. And then there were a handful of things that absolutely were that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to ferret out is this my attachment style, or is this the other person's behavior, or some combination of both? Because sometimes it's intuition that I'm secure 99% of the time, and then this one person that my partner hangs out with brings up my insecurity. Well, is that because I'm an insecurely attached person, or is that because there's something shady about this one person? So intuition comes into play sometimes too.
What are the things that you start looking at when you're dating somebody, that red flags that come up in the dating process around this that would let you know that it might be too extreme for you to get into?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of this too is how well you match up. Not that it's right or wrong, but if you need to talk to someone every day and that person doesn't call or text you every day, that might be a preference, or that might have to do with your attachment style, that you need that close contact in order to feel secure, and the other person may not need that. So what I think defining red flags is specific to the person and the relationship rather than necessarily a global, this is a bad behavior kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of the things we talk about do go back to how much the person knows about themselves and their willingness to understand whatever it is they're doing in the relationship that has an impact on the relationship, whether it be negative or positive. So
yeah. And I also think that you look at things like, we have a pattern that we text each other good morning every morning, and the person I'm dating misses a morning. Well, does that send me into a panic? Or do I have enough secure attachment and enough trust to say, they were probably busy this morning? Do I make it mean something like, oh my gosh, they didn't think about me, or now they've forgotten about me, or maybe they're thinking of breaking up with me? So part of that is, if you're that second person who catastrophizes not getting a text, that's probably your insecure attachment style.
Ooh, that sounds rough. That's scary.
Yeah, to someone who's avoidantly attached, that sounds terrible.
Bringing up my avoidant attachment issues right now. As so many reasons I'll probably not get another date. Added to the long list of reasons. One thing I've been thinking about as doing the research on this, as we've talked about this, and also I have a friend who's pretty interested in this topic and talks quite a bit about it in her own personal journey in it. But I think that can change for you over time. Or I'd say maybe it can, obviously you can change it. But what I have a hard time understanding is how you delineate between, for me, just use me, the way I feel about attaching at the age I am right now, through all the relationships that I've been through, is very different than I felt about attaching those many years ago.
Oh, so more about that.
Well, I'm a lot more avoidant about it now because I don't consider myself attachment avoidant. I have had relationships where I've very comfortably attached, but I think at this point, I'm unsure about the value of attaching.
Okay.
I think it seems there's a lot more that comes into play around. I feel like I consider a lot more now before I'm going to let somebody in, because my life is very different now than it was when I was 25, 35.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if that's related to attachment styles, that you are unwilling or unable to securely attach to someone, but it's got to, the juice has to be worth the squeeze at this point.
Well, that's great way to determine. And it is how I feel, but I can see how it would be, the perception of that would be wrong, that I have an attachment avoidant issue, when really and truly I am superior. The juice is just sweet.
Exactly. It's not that I don't want to attach, it's that I don't want to attach to you. Monique. We already said before we started recording today that we're going to start season 2 starting with our next episode. And in season 2, we might just start calling people out. We're going to forget all about Monique and Veronica, and we're calling y'all by your real names now. So look out.
If you date me and piss me off, I might just call you out.
That's right. We have ones that say, be careful or you'll end up on my podcast. So fair warning to all of our friends and Rachel's date.
That's right. If you're Monique and you're not listening to my damn podcast anyway, you won't know if I call you out.
Rachel might or might not have gotten threatened that somebody won't listen to her podcast anymore. But, like you said, she'll never know if she's not listening. I love it. Okay. Well, I think that one of the things that's helpful when you're dating someone who might have a different attachment style than you or not, even if they're the same, is kind of like we did today. You just name your patterns early without shaming yourself or without shaming the other person. You just kind of notice what your own style is and you let the other person know so they know what to expect.
Yeah. And I think it's also better than if you are someone who knows a lot about this. I also think you might not need to be the person to call out somebody's stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Rule number 1 of therapy is you just call yourself out. You don't really call out the other person. If you see observable behaviors with someone, hey, I noticed that you text me a lot throughout the day. Tell me more about that behavior for you. Or, hey, I noticed you don't text me back for 3 days. What's happening around that? So it's okay to notice someone's behavior, but I wouldn't say, wow, you must be really clingy and anxiously attached because you're texting me too much.
And yeah, I think that unless it's relevant and germane to the discussion that you're having with somebody and they too are aware of and interested or talking about their own attachment styles, but otherwise I don't think most people like being psychoanalyzed.
No, absolutely not. And you can be curious about it with them, about what meets their needs. In the past, I hope I've gotten a little better about this, but I have used protesting behavior. So if you're going to text me 10 times, then I'm going to stonewall you and not text you back for 24 hours. So make sure that you're not doing that. If someone's not responding to you, don't text them 10 times in a row. Don't do that. And if someone texts you 10 times in a row, don't punish them by not texting them back. You want to talk about the behavior, not go to some extreme in order to protest how they're.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I was reflecting back on sort of a Monique Veronica scenario where that person actually started texting me like every morning and every evening and acknowledged that they enjoyed the rhythm of that. And what after I've had time to step back and reflect on that, I realized that I actually wasn't interested in an every morning and an every evening text, but I just responded. I just fell into it. And so what happened is that because I didn't use my big girl voice and say, hey, because it wasn't really clear to me, but that I just didn't speak up and say, well, I don't really necessarily think we're at an every morning and every evening text at this point. It went on, and then the perception was that I was in an every morning and every evening texting.
And so what happened when you finally realized that that wasn't something you were interested in?
Well, I realized it after realizing that I was not tracking with this person in general. I just wasn't wanting to move at the pace they were moving in general. But obviously in those conversations, what I did realize was that also that person was really taking stock of those things as markers for where we were or where we should be. Like if we're doing this, then this means we're supposed to be here. And I was not at all there.
Got it. And so that's really good information because you could have been inadvertently giving this person a mixed message. So lesson learned.
I learned my lesson.
I like it. And none of this stuff is written in stone and none of this stuff is about being perfect. It's about figuring out what's a fit for you. And I wonder too, Rachel, that if this was somebody that you were crazy about, maybe you would have wanted to text them every morning and every night.
Yeah. I am currently texting someone on a very regular basis, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. And that will just call
Well,
Veronica.
okay. Until next season, and then we're going to have to name her. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, well, let's talk about what secure attachment looks like, because that's what we're all aspiring to is having those secure attachments with people. So do you think secure attachments are perfect?
No. No, I don't. But what I do think is generally what that says to me is that you may flow in and out of one or the other a little bit, but that you recover quickly, and that that you can get back in. So you have a moment, but that generally you can get back into the mainstream of your relationship and being securely attached.
Yes, it doesn't mean that you're always feeling 100% secure, but it does mean when you go through those moments where one or both people are not feeling secure, you jump back in and repair more easily. You don't hang on to fears and you don't hang on to resentment about someone's behavior for the long haul, because that's hard to bounce back from.
Yeah.
So what do you see as some of the markers, some of, let's say, green flags of secure attachment?
Well, I think consistent communication would definitely be one. When you said that, I was just thinking that probably people that stay more in the secure attachment place are probably communicating a lot and talking about things. And when it goes off the rails, they're able to talk about them, get them back on the rails pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yep. So when you say that, what I hear, what I think you mean is that when you say they talk a lot, that means that they talk openly about the important things.
Yes, to be clear, yes, not just chitter chatter, but they're communicating about the important things.
Yes, because I know couples who I think are probably securely attached who talk to each other 10 times a day throughout the day. That if one of them has a break from work, they'll call their partner, or if one of them, as soon as they get in their car, they call their partner, and they're communicating a lot throughout the day. And I don't think that necessarily means, I don't think that means anything about their attachment style per se, but that's just how they communicate. But
that's making me sweat a little bit.
Yeah. Y'all could see Rachel right now. You can see she's squirming in her chair right now. Yep. Me too, girl. Me too.
Well, also, I will say that's why you need to, that's okay, but you got to match up with somebody who also wants that.
Yes. Yes. And the couples that I'm thinking about both seem to love that. They, they'll leave the house and then call their partner when they get in the car. And like, didn't you just leave each other? Like, what you got to talk about right now? So, I mean, Joe and I call each other when we have something to say. So, hey, I'm headed to the store. Do you need me to pick anything up? Or, something big's going on, like, hey, how did your pickleball game go? So, if there's something that I'm curious about that I want to talk about, but we don't need to talk 10 times a day.
She's mad at
really attached.
She gets mad at you sometimes because you do not answer her phone call.
I've gotten way better. Joe recently told someone that if her car broke down on the side of the road, she wouldn't call me. Because she's like, Sarah never answers.
No.
Oh, I don't want to be that person. So I've been way better. Unless if I'm not in session with a client, I do try to be very mindful of answering the calls of my wife.
That's good, because I don't want to have to hear about it over lunch at Marty's, fussing at you.
Yep. All right. So we will say consistent communication is a green flag of secure attachment. Not necessarily frequent, but consistent. It doesn't have to be 10 times a day. It doesn't have to be every morning and every night, but you want to get a sense of what your rhythm is with that person and that you're not left wondering.
Yeah. Also, flexibility and empathy.
Okay.
And I think empathy is really important in order to stop long enough and try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and kind of see where they're coming from and really listening to them without wanting to, just listening to where they are and not thinking about what you want to say to them to defend yourself. And I think if you can do that, you can quickly diffuse things.
For sure. And that's just an overall general rule for listening, is that try not to listen for what you're going to say next. Try to listen for the meaning and the intent of the other person's communication. But yes, that flexibility and empathy goes a long way.
Also, flexibility, to me, this is sort of a rule of thumb that I have had in my relationships, is that you may have some things that you do that I don't want to do, that I wouldn't do. Like, I hate putting my clothes away after I fold them, or take the shoes upstairs, whatever the thing is that you do. If it is that you need to pace around the room 10 times and unpack and repack your bag because you're anxious, well, yes,
You can talk to your therapist about that if that's what's happening, but okay.
But if I don't, if I don't need to be in that, then I don't need to be in there. It doesn't, unless we can't get out the door on time. Does that really impact me? Does that
Yes,
really affect
good.
me?
I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because I think another green flag of secure attachment is that you don't constantly stir up shit. Do you know couples who just get mad at each other about every little thing? It is
Yes.
exhausting. And when you're securely attached, you can do exactly what you just said. Like, oh, that's your deal. Pace around the room. Do what you want to do. It's fine. But man, I know couples that are constantly on each other, and they are getting in fights about the tiniest things that literally do not matter.
Yep. I was in a relationship where I had someone who was habitually late. And what I learned in this is that the more that I pressed, the more anxious, the more it brought out their anxious nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized, like, I was taking a bad tack. It was making it worse. Instead, I really just had to back up and go, okay. And I said, just need you to figure out what the solution is. Either get up earlier, start sooner, whatever it is you need to do, just figure it out. And I don't need to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I just need to get out the door on time.
Yeah.
And
at the end of the day, you got to get out the door on time, and maybe they come in their own car later. That you can't keep yourself held hostage about something like that. And you don't need to get in a big fight about it.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that, yes, definitely not escalating conflict unnecessarily, not stirring up shit when you don't need to stir up shit.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is a sign. I was actually just thinking about a couple that I know who, one of them travels for work, and she doesn't have a choice. This is her job. She has to travel for work. And her partner doesn't like it that she travels for work. But the partner's maybe a little bit less securely attached. And they get in a fight about it every single week. It's like, well, no, you cannot escalate that conflict, because there's nothing you can do about it. So you either have to get a new partner who doesn't travel, or you got to figure out how to get okay with it. But don't stay in it and keep fighting about it, because that is not working out for either of their attachment styles.
Well, that couple is having lesbian bed death, because there is no way that you can recover from. It takes a week for women to get over shit to want to reconnect in that way. And it starts all over again before they even get a chance
to repair. Yeah, that's right. That is true. So let's talk about how people can navigate those mismatched styles. So if you're avoidant and you are partnered with someone who is anxious, how do you navigate that?
First, you have to know what your triggers are, I suppose, and making sure that you're clear with the other person about what the triggers are, so that, the landmines that you don't want them to step in.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's true. And I think the person who leans toward anxious attachment always has this feeling that they care a little bit more. Like, I'm in 51% and the other person's only in 49%, and it creates this imbalance. And that can be really stressful if you feel like you always care a little bit more than the other person.
Yeah. And then I guess noticing the difference between, this couple, they're in a cycle that is really, it sounds just a daily grind. Whereas sometimes you can just be annoyed. And I guess understanding the difference between something that is just annoying to you, but you can live with it, versus something that actually is making you're in a pretty damn dysfunctional situation.
Yeah, like if it's, I really tend to steer away from this word, but if you're getting triggered by something, like if your attachment style is being activated by something, that's a little bit different than just being annoyed by, I wish this was different. But the person on the avoidance side of things tends to feel like they're constantly being asked for more than they can give. God, and this is why it's so important to find someone who you mesh with, because that is the worst. Both of those are the worst feeling like you're the person who cares more and you're always trying to get a little bit more. But being on the other side of that is awful too. People who you're constantly feeling like you're being asked for more than you can give. And that is not a good way to feel.
Interesting and true.
Yeah. So if you find yourself in that situation, I think that there are a few things you can do. One is you can ask yourself, is this really about her? Or is this about me replaying an old wound? Has this person been untrustworthy, or have I been wounded by an untrustworthy partner in the past? Something like that.
Yeah. And communicating before somebody triggers you. So that's also being proactive about that. Again, giving people as much information as you can so that they can deal with you appropriately.
Yes. And if you think about this playing itself out, like we were describing before, of one person kind of chasing and the other person running away, the way that you cannot activate each other around that is that the person who needs space can take that space without being punitive. And the suggestions I have around that are, you say to the person, hey, I need a little bit of space here. I'm going to go in the other room and I'll be back in 15 minutes to finish this conversation. Or I'm going to get off the phone for now. I'm going to call you in the morning so we can finish this conversation. So you let the person know directly that you're taking space, and you let them know when you're coming back, and then you come back at the appointed time. And then the person who's feeling more insecure knows, hey, I'm not being abandoned. I'm just giving this person space to breathe.
Good suggestions.
Yeah. And so in the big picture, as you said from the research, you're not doomed by your attachment style. You can absolutely move toward a more secure attachment, even if you tend toward one of the poles on this.
Yeah. And also just the being mindful and self-aware in your dating. And, hopefully most of us have had some therapy along the way, but making sure that you use that information in your dating process. You're not paying that person to give you tools that you don't use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can't advocate therapy enough. We all could use a little bit of that. I think you can journal about what's happening. If you're a writer, just write things down so that you can sort of keep track of yourself and stay aware of your own patterns. Those things can really help you shift those ruts that you get into.
Yeah. The other is the idea of, it's oftentimes really great for us to be with somebody who stretches us.
Yeah.
But understanding the line between being stretched and being overly challenged where it's unhealthy.
Yeah. Like you don't want to pick someone who's going to re-wound you from an old wound. But yeah, someone who challenged you a little bit, maybe who doesn't text you back quite as often as you think you should be texted back, or maybe someone who challenges you to be more communicative than you would ordinarily be. Either of those, I think, is a good thing.
And your healing doesn't require you to be alone. And going back to the research, too, of just the idea that these things can be shifted and changed. If you have the desire and you're really with somebody who's worth the effort, you think that you see somebody that you think, if you're dating them and that you see great potential, you're not doomed. Put a stake in the ground. I'm always just going to be this way, and you have to accept it.
Not helpful. What are the takeaways that we want folks to have from today's episode?
Well, first, being too much or too distant often just means being misunderstood.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you understand your attachment style, then you can make choices that serve you better and don't keep you stuck in those old ruts, those old patterns.
Yeah, and also we talked about this isn't about fixing yourself to become lovable. You're lovable. It's really just about finding love that fits with you.
Yes, for sure. If any of you are interested in going a little bit deeper, I would recommend there are tons of attachment quizzes that you could take online for free. So you could just find out a little bit more about your attachment style if you haven't figured it out from the way we've talked about it today. You can also go talk to a therapist. There are a lot of therapists that are well-versed in attachment styles. And also just noticing your own patterns. If you want to take a little deeper dive, I have 3 books that I would love to recommend. These are all excellent books that explain attachment theory and talk about how to work toward more secure attachment. The first one is a book just called Attached. The author is Amir Levine. There's another book called Wired for Love. That one is by Stan Tatkin. And the third one I would recommend is a book called Hold Me Tight by Sue Johnson. These are all excellent authors and researchers that present the information in a really cohesive, interesting way.
Great.
So that is a wrap, y'all, for season 1 of the Dateable AF podcast. I can't believe we're already finishing our first season. Woo! So if you haven't listened to all of our episodes, please go back and check them out because we're about to launch into season 2. We're still going to be talking about dating, but we're also going to be diving into talking a little more about relationships, longer-term relationships.
And we do have an upcoming event. I don't know if we want to drop that on our listeners right now or wait a little while and keep them in suspense.
Well, we can tease them about the date and where it's going to be, and then we'll tell them more later.
Yes. So we will be at the 1972 Sports Bar here in Austin, Texas on Sunday, August 24th. And there will be a lot more information coming out about that, but we will be there recording live and with some great audience participation, and we'll give you more details about that later.
Yes, mark your calendars. We hope to see you there. Please join us. We have a Facebook page, Dateable AF, and we would love to get your feedback and your engagement from the Facebook page. We're on Instagram, also at Dateable AF. And please like, follow, and subscribe and share us with your friends. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Dateable AF podcast, where we help you find your happy ending.
Remember, be bold, be kind, and for the love of queer dating, don't text your ex. Stay dateable.
AF.